Hello, and welcome to the Virtual Enrichment series. This month, we're talking about the predation sequence with a specific focus on herding. I'm Jen Friedline, certified behavior consultant, family dog mediator, certified professional dog trainer, and the owner at Jen's Dogs. I advocate for force-free, relationship-based training, and I help families build calm, connected relationships with their dogs through thoughtful enrichment and behavior support. Let us begin. What is enrichment? Enrichment is the way we meet our individual dogs' physical, mental, and emotional needs in order to empower them to perform species typical behaviors in a healthy, safe, and appropriate ways. We focus on species typical needs, we focus on breed typical needs, and we focus on self typical needs, the individual dog in front of us. The goal of enrichment is to structure the environment and routine so dogs can engage in natural behaviors like foraging, problem solving, social engagement, calming activities, and predation outlets. This matters because domestic dogs live in a controlled environment. When they lack appropriate outlets for instinctual behavior, behavioral challenges often arise, and the connection between the unmet need and the behavior isn't always obvious. At Jen's Dogs, we organize enrichment into 6 core categories to provide a planning framework. We have social, which is spending time with others, physical, which involves movement, calming, which is settling, processing, and stress reduction, foraging and scavenging, allowing the dog to use their nose, problem solving, providing opportunities for the dog to use their brain, and the predation sequence, providing those opportunities to use their instinct. Today we are focusing on the predation sequence. All dogs have some form of the predation sequence intact. It may be heightened or suppressed depending on genetics, breeding purpose, personal history, and even generational selection. The full predation sequence looks like this. The orient, which is when they first notice something, the eye lock, which is the stare, stalking, which is slow movement, chasing, which is fast movement, grab bite is contact, kill bite is the shake bite, dissect is tearing something apart, and then consuming. This is the standard hunting sequence in predatory animals. Now let's narrow that down to herding. As a family dog mediator, I reference Kim Brophy's LEGS model, which stands for learning, environment, genetics, and self. From that framework, herding breeds were intentionally developed to amplify specific pieces of the predation sequence so they could work in partnership with humans. These dogs were bred to manage livestock at a distance while remaining responsive to human direction. They were selected for their ability to control movement without causing harm. So what does that mean in practice? They were bred to be fast, low to the ground, strategic, persistent, and extremely sensitive to motion. The amplified predation sequence for herding highlights the eye lock, stalking, chasing, and grab bite, and it suppresses the kill bite, dissect, and consume. That suppression is what prevents harm. Now let's look at those 4 amplified stages. Eye lock is the visual control. That is the intense stare where the dog assesses the movement in front of them. They are evaluating whether intervention is needed. Stalking is slow, strategic movement. It's a controlled positioning and they're getting into place. Chasing is the fast pursuit, which includes circling, applying social pressure, and influencing direction. Your grab bite is controlled contact, a nip to increase speed or restore order. These stages do not always occur in a strict linear sequence. A dog may chase, regain control, return to stalking. They are always constantly adjusting. If you live with a herding breed, you have likely seen that management style. These dogs are orderly, directive, and persistent. They are designed to enforce structure. In modern homes, however, that instinct can become problematic. Herding instinct may show up as obsessive fixations, shadowing movement, circling guests or children, chasing bikes or joggers, nipping at the heel or the upper thigh, grabbing clothes, or obsessions with ball, laser pointers, turning in circles, When these behaviors occur without an outlet, needs go unmet. When needs go unmet, we see increased frustration, hypervigilance, intense adolescence, self-assigning jobs, reactivity to movement, overwhelm with additional stimuli, and seemingly out of control moments. In my specialty services, I often see reactivity that appears to come out of nowhere in herding breeds, but when we look underneath, it is frequently an unmet instinctual need. This is where enrichment becomes essential. When we move from species-specific to breed-specific to self-specific enrichment, we begin meeting the actual needs of the individual dog. By allowing safe rehearsal of watching, controlled movement, strategic pursuit, and physical engagement, we create an outlet before eruption. First, let's talk about full replacement. If you want to provide the entire herding sequence without livestock, here are options. Tribal style games, and tribal is usually a group effort held in a structured environment. Organizations that use dogs to flush geese. This is also a controlled environment, but a much larger space. Large yoga ball for herding at home. Robotic toys that respond to contact, or other toys that play back. These provide straightforward sequence replacement. If full replacement isn't possible, we can target specific stages. Not all dogs need the full sequence expression. Match enrichment to the individual dog. Identify where their frustration builds. Meet the strongest drive first. Breed tendencies do not always equal individual needs. So now we will discuss each stage and the ability to target each individual part of the predation sequence as needed. Let's start with the eye lock. The behavior for the eye lock is an intense stare. So the enrichment you want to develop should include some of the following points. Structured observation under threshold, watching and processing movement, watching alongside you or another dog, and look at that style games. The behavior is going to require them to be still. There is no movement happening. Some specific examples of this can be calm drives, under threshold, where your dog can watch activity from afar, rest stops on walks or hikes, watching TV together, and they look at that game, which is something you can intentionally practice with your dog. Other enrichment categories that are going to be engaged here as part of your overall enrichment planning and making sure your dog is getting balance are social and problem solving. Next, we have stalking. The behavior for stalking is slow and controlled movement. Enrichment you are looking for in this category should hit the following points: putting movement on cue, controlled approach games, or pauses before movement release. Some specific examples are a flirt pull with a very clear start and stop, pushing smaller balls around at a slower pace while walking, the red light, green light game, and teaching cues like crawl, especially crawl with a distance, going through tunnels, or moving towards a target. Other categories engaged here are social and problem solving. Next, we'll talk about chasing. This behavior for chasing is fast pursuit. Enrichment that you are looking for in this category should provide a structured outlet for high intensity movement. Some examples are very active flirt pull with minimal interruption, a back and forth chase with a human or compatible dog, or pausing before fetching. That pause before fetch still has a start and stop, but it is targeting fast movement rather than slow movement. The categories engaged here are physical, social, and problem solving. And finally, we have the grab bite. The behavior for the grab bite is controlled contact, specifically with teeth. Enrichment you are looking for in this category should hit the following points: catch and hold games and targeted mouth engagement. Clear examples are playing catch, tug with a dog or human, Or you can even rig a tug toy to a tree or a branch so it has some give and will play back. These categories in this stage are physical, social, and problem solving. Sometimes it's best to just change the job entirely. Part of working dogs' genetic line is the management piece and doing a job. That instinctual brain is often very close to the reactive brain. If the job they think they are supposed to do can't be completed, this increases the possibility of reactivity and frustration. If we change the job, we can give the dog a job and stay away from the reactive instinctual brain. This can look like scent work or nose work, which falls into your foraging and scavenging enrichment category. Tracking fits here as well. Advanced obedience, which engages problem solving. This can include long heel patterns, very restrictive cues, tight turns, or even prepping for show or competition style obedience, even if you do not plan to compete. Their job becomes working with you and following very specific rules. Pattern games are another good option. When you change the job and switch into the thinking and learning brain, your dog is getting the same fulfillment just in a different way. It becomes job satisfaction instead of just job type. Your dog still gets their management needs fulfilled, even though they are not doing the instinctual job they were bred to do. All right, I'd like for you all to start considering what you would like to put into the chat. After this presentation has ended, we will be going to the chat and addressing each of your concerns and questions individually. So if you can share in the chat your dog's breed, do you see herding behaviors, which stage shows up the most, and one enrichment idea that you would like to try. As a reminder, we always adapt enrichment for the individual. It doesn't matter how we feel about it, it matters how your dog feels about it. Sometimes you need to try things more than once. If certain instincts or herding behaviors have been previously suppressed, when we now say, okay, you're allowed to do this, it may take time for them to feel safe and confident doing it. And sometimes they may choose not to engage at all, and that's okay as well. Always supervise, especially the first time trying something or in the beginning stages of your enrichment activity. Watch for the emotional shifts, not just during the activity, but after. How is their behavior after enrichment compared to before? What are you seeing the following day? If you truly met that need, you should see a calmer, more confident dog who is able to think more clearly and handle their environment better, which also means making better choices. Adjust the intensity as needed. Sometimes what we think is easy is actually hard, and sometimes what we think is hard is very easy. When enrichment is focused on the predation sequence and the accentuated parts of that do a job, the primary reinforcer that your dog is receiving is job satisfaction. There is no amount of food, toys, or play that replaces that intrinsic reinforcement. By providing this type of enrichment, you are offering a meaningful outlet and a safe, accessible job, and that can lead to a regulated dog. Our closing quote today comes from Kim Brophy in Meet Your Dog. The better we understand our dog's natural instincts, the better we can meet their needs in ways that work for both ends of the leash. Thank you for attending. Our next session will be March 21st at 10 a.m. The topic will be working together, which is focusing on the social piece of enrichment. If you have questions or thoughts, please reach out. If there's something you'd like to see covered in a future session, let me know. Your feedback helps shape these presentations. All right, let's move on to the chat.